Daehyun kept his head down as he walked through the main corridor of Orbital Station Kepler-7. The station buzzed with activity like it always did. Aliens of every shape and size moved past him, most of them not bothering to look his way. The ones who did look often showed the same expression: disgust, amusement, sometimes pity. He was used to it by now. The human pulled his maintenance kit closer to his chest and headed toward the lift that would take him to the lower decks. That was where he spent most of his time, down in the guts of the station, fixing things that broke, checking systems that kept everyone alive. It was honest work, hard work, but nobody seemed to care about that. "Watch it, human." Daehyun stopped just in time. A massive Goroth nearly trampled him, the creature's 4 legs thundering past. Thum, the dock worker, didn't even slow down. The Goroth stood at least 12 feet tall, with thick gray skin and tusks that could punch through metal. He made the corridor shake with each step. "Sorry," Daehyun muttered, even though it wasn't his fault. He reached the lift and pressed the button. While he waited, he checked his schedule on his datapad. 3 repair jobs today: a faulty air recycler in Section 4, some damaged wiring in the cargo bay, and a routine maintenance check on the coolant systems in Section 9. The lift doors opened. Inside stood Vexthar, the station's security chief. The Krillian was 7 feet of scaled muscle, with cold yellow eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. He wore the dark uniform of station security, weapons visible on his belt. Vexthar looked down at Daehyun. His lip curled back, showing more teeth. "Going down to hide in your hole, human?" Daehyun stepped into the lift and moved to the corner. "Just going to work, sir." "Work." Vexthar laughed, a hissing sound. "You call it work when you barely survive each day? Your kind is so fragile. Weak bones, thin skin. You need special air to breathe, special food to eat. You are a liability to this station." The lift descended. Daehyun said nothing. He had learned that arguing never helped. "I spoke to the station commander again yesterday," Vexthar continued. "Told him we should not allow humans in critical positions. One mistake from you could kill dozens of real crew members." Real crew members. The word stung, but Daehyun kept his face blank. The lift stopped at level 7. Vexthar stepped out but turned back before the doors closed. "One day, human, your weakness will cause a disaster. I just hope I am not nearby when it happens." The doors slid shut. Daehyun let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He continued down to level 12, then made his way through the narrow maintenance tunnels. Down here, the station showed its true face. Pipes ran along every wall. Steam hissed from joints. The air smelled like oil and recycled oxygen. But Daehyun felt more comfortable here than anywhere else on the station. At least machines didn't judge him. He found Hee-jin in the docking bay supervisor's office, reviewing cargo manifests. The older human woman looked up when he entered and smiled. "Morning, Daehyun. Sleep okay?" "Well enough." He sat down in the spare chair. Ran into Vexthar in the lift. Hee-jin's smile faded. "Let me guess. More speeches about how humans don't belong here?" "Something like that." She shook her head. "That Krillian needs to find a hobby. You're one of the best engineers on this station. Everyone knows it, even if they won't admit it." "Thanks, Nuna." The Korean term of respect came naturally. Hee-jin reminded him of his older sister back on Earth. "Just stating facts." She turned back to her screen. "Be careful today, okay? I heard the coolant system in Section 9 has been acting up. Make sure you have proper gear before you go in there." "I will." Daehyun spent the morning on routine repairs. The air recycler was an easy fix, just a clogged filter. The wiring in the cargo bay took longer, but he found the problem and replaced the damaged section. By afternoon, he was ready to tackle the coolant system. He was checking his equipment when the station alarm went off. The sound made everyone freeze. Station alarms meant emergencies, real emergencies. Daehyun's communicator buzzed. It was the station commander, a nervous Pelthian named Quinn. "All personnel, this is command. We have a critical situation in Section 9. The primary coolant system is failing. Repeat. Primary coolant system failure in Section 9. We need an engineer immediately. Dae-hyun was already running. He reached the section's entrance to find a crowd gathered. Vexthar was there, along with several other security officers. The station commander stood nearby, his forearms waving in distress. The leak is getting worse, Quinn said. If we don't fix it in the next hour, the whole cooling grid will cascade. We will lose environmental control across 3 sections. Send in an engineering team, Vexthar said. We cannot. The leak is releasing chlorine gas, toxic to most species on this station. Vexthar turned to look at the gathered engineers. Can any of you enter with protective gear? One by one, they shook their heads. Gorth couldn't fit through the access tunnels. Krillians were vulnerable to chlorine even with masks. Pelthians needed their breathing stalks exposed to regulate temperature. Dae-hyun checked his kit. He had a respirator, standard issue for human engineers. It was designed for exactly these kinds of situations. I can do it, he said. Everyone turned to look at him. What? Vexithar's voice dripped with scorn. I have a respirator. Chlorine won't affect me if I wear it. And I can fit through the access tunnels. The station commander's eyes widened with hope. You can fix it? I can try. Vexithar stepped closer, looming over Dae-hyun. This is not a game, human. If you fail, people die. I know. You will probably collapse in there. Your weak body cannot handle the strain. Maybe. Dae-hyun met the Krillian's eyes. But nobody else can even try. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Commander Quinn made his decision. Do it. But be quick. Dae-hyun pulled on his respirator and checked the seal. He grabbed his tools and entered the access tunnel. Behind him, he heard Vexthar mutter something about desperate humans. The tunnel was tight and hot. As Dae-hyun crawled deeper, he started to smell the sharp, bitter scent of chlorine gas. His respirator filtered it out, but he could feel his eyes starting to water. He reached the coolant junction. The leak was worse than reported. Green gas filled the small chamber. Dae-hyun could barely see through it. His communicator crackled. Status report. I'm at the junction. Beginning repairs. Working in the gas was hard. The respirator made it difficult to breathe. Sweat poured down his face. His hands shook as he worked, but he forced them steady. One wrong move and the entire pipe could rupture. 20 minutes passed. 30. 40. Human, you need to exit now. Vexthar's voice came through. You have been in there too long. Almost done, Dae-hyun gasped. He made the final connection and sealed the joint. The hissing sound of escaping gas stopped. The pressure gauge stabilized. It's fixed, he reported. He started crawling back, but something was wrong. The tunnel seemed to be spinning. His arms felt heavy. The respirator suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Dae-hyun? Hye-jin's voice sounded far away. Dae-hyun, respond. He tried to answer, but his vision was going dark. The last thing he remembered was the cold floor of the tunnel against his face. When he woke up, he was in the medical bay. Hye-jin sat beside his bed, her face tight with worry. You scared me, she said softly. Did it work? His throat felt like sandpaper. The coolant system is stable. You saved 3 sections from environmental failure, probably saved dozens of lives. Good. You also collapsed from gas exposure and overheating. The doctor said you were in there twice as long as you should have been. Dae-hyun closed his eyes. Sorry. Don't apologize. You did what nobody else could do. He wanted to believe that mattered, but he knew the truth. By tomorrow, most of the station would have forgotten. Or worse, they would remember and still think of him as weak, as desperate, as a fragile human who got lucky. Outside his room, he heard voices. One of them was Vexthar. The human did what was necessary, nothing more. Any species would have done the same in his position. Dae-hyun stared at the ceiling. Some things never changed, but at least he was alive, and the station was safe. For now, that had to be enough. 3 days after the coolant incident, Dae-hyun was back at work. His lungs still hurt a bit when he breathed deep, but the doctor had cleared him for light duty. Light duty meant staying out of hazardous areas for a week, fine by him. He was running diagnostics on a power relay when the station announcement system crackled to life. Attention all personnel. We will be receiving a diplomatic guest. A Vorthanis envoy will be arriving within the hour. All sections are to maintain standard protocol. Security teams report to your stations. Daehyun paused his work. Vorthanis. He had heard stories about them like everyone had. The apex predators of the galaxy. Even their name made most species nervous. Hee-Jin appeared at his workstation, her face pale. Did you hear? About the Vorthanis? Yeah, station command is panicking. Nobody told them we were getting a Vorthanis visitor until an hour ago. Apparently she just sent a message saying she was coming. She? Kairesha. That is her name. Hee-Jin pulled up the information on her datapad. She is here to negotiate mining rights in the outer reaches. Official diplomatic business. Daehyun looked at the image on the screen. The Vorthanis was tall, at least 8 feet. She had 4 arms, each ending in hands that looked like they could crush steel. Her body was covered in chitinous plates that gleamed dark blue under lights. Sensor tendrils grew from her head like hair, constantly moving. Her eyes were black and bottomless. She looks dangerous, Daehyun said quietly. She is dangerous. Vorthanis are solitary hunters. They can track prey across star systems. They never stop once they mark a target. And they are strong enough to tear through bulkhead doors with their bare hands. So why is she coming here for negotiations? Hee-Jin shrugged. Maybe even apex predators need trade agreements. I don't know. I am just glad I work in the docking bay and not anywhere near the diplomatic suites. The hour passed quickly. Daehyun tried to focus on his work, but found himself checking the station feeds. When Kairesha's ship docked, the entire station seemed to hold its breath. She emerged from her vessel alone. Most diplomats traveled with assistants, guards, servants, not her. She walked down the docking ramp with absolute confidence, her sensor tendrils moving in patterns that Daehyun didn't understand. Station Commander Quinn met her, all 4 of his arms extended in greeting. The Vorthanis looked down at him. She was nearly twice his height. She didn't return the gesture. I require quarters, she said. Her voice was deep and seemed to vibrate through the deck plates. And privacy, of course, honored guest. We have prepared our finest diplomatic suite for you. Kairesha followed the commander through the station. Crew members scrambled out of her way. Even Vexisthar, who usually stood his ground against everyone, stepped back when she passed. Daehyun watched from a distance, fascinated despite himself. She moved with the grace of something designed to hunt. Every step was precise. Every movement had purpose. She never looked uncertain or cautious. The galaxy belonged to her and everyone else just lived in it. 2 hours later, his communicator buzzed. It was the maintenance supervisor. Daehyun, we have a problem. The diplomatic suite environmental controls are malfunctioning. The temperature is rising and the Vorthanis guest is unhappy. Unhappy. She is threatening to tear the environmental control panel out of the wall. We need someone to fix it immediately. Can't you send someone else? I am still on light duty. Everyone else refuses to go. Vexthar tried to send a security team, but they said they are not qualified for environmental repairs. The supervisor paused. You are the only one who can fix this quickly. Please, Daehyun. If we upset a Vorthanis diplomat, there could be serious consequences. Daehyun closed his eyes. Of course. The job nobody wanted always ended up being his. I will be there in 5 minutes. He grabbed his toolkit and headed for the diplomatic level. The corridors were empty. Everyone had cleared out, probably not wanting to be anywhere near an angry apex predator. Smart people. When he reached the suite, he pressed the door chime. No response. He pressed it again. Enter, came the deep voice from inside. Daehyun opened the door. The heat hit him immediately. The suite was at least 40 degrees too hot. And in the center of the main room stood Kairesha. She looked even bigger in person. Her chitinous plates were darker than in the image, with patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Her 4 arms hung at her sides, relaxed but ready. Her sensor tendrils were moving in agitated patterns. She was breathing heavily, clearly uncomfortable. You are the engineer? She asked. Yes, ma'am. I am here to fix the environmental controls. She studied him for a long moment. Her black eyes seemed to look right through him. You are human. Yes, ma'am. Humans are considered fragile, weak. This is what I have heard. Daehyun kept his voice steady. You heard correctly. But I can still fix your environmental system. Something changed in her expression. Not a smile, exactly. But maybe a hint of curiosity. Proceed. He moved to the environmental control panel, trying to ignore the fact that she was watching his every move. The panel's readouts were all wrong. Temperature spiking. Humidity dropping. Air mixture unstable. When did this start? He asked. 10 minutes after I entered. The room became hot. Too hot even for my comfort. Daehyun pulled out his scanner and checked the systems. It only took a moment to find the problem. The atmospheric processor is configured for Pelthian guests. They prefer high heat and low moisture. It is incompatible with Vorthanis' environmental needs. Can you fix it? Yes. I need to reroute the primary controls and reset the base parameters. It will take about 15 minutes. Acceptable, he got to work. His hands moved quickly, disconnecting the wrong settings and inputting new ones. He could feel her watching him the whole time. Those black eyes never blinked, never looked away. You do not shake, she observed, ma'am. Your hands. They do not tremble. Most beings shake when I am near. Fear response. But you do not, Daehyun kept working. I am focused on the repair. Shaking would make mistakes more likely. You smell different from others I have encountered. Less afraid. He glanced at her, then back at his work. I'm afraid. I would be stupid not to be. But fear doesn't fix machines. Silence. Then something that might have been approval in her tone. A practical approach. He finished the rerouting and activated the new settings. The temperature immediately began to drop. The humidity stabilized. Within moments, the suite felt comfortable again. Kiresha's sensor tendrils slowed their agitated movement. Her breathing eased. She closed her eyes briefly, clearly relieved. Better, she said. The system should maintain proper Vorthanis environmental parameters now. If there are any other problems, you can contact maintenance. He packed up his toolkit and turned to leave. Wait. He stopped. What is your designation? My name is Daehyun. Daehyun. She pronounced it carefully, her deep voice making the syllables sound strange. You do not smell of fear, Daehyun. Why? He thought about how to answer. I have been afraid many times. I was almost killed 3 days ago fixing a coolant leak. But being afraid doesn't change what needs to be done. The machines still need fixing. People still need help. So I do the work. Kiresha tilted her head, studying him with those bottomless black eyes. Your species is considered weak. We are weak. Compared to most species, we break easily. We need careful environments. We get hurt more often. He met her gaze. But we fix things. We solve problems. We find ways to survive. Maybe that counts for something. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her sensor tendrils shifted into a pattern that almost seemed like respect. Perhaps it does. She gestured toward the door with one of her 4 hands. You may go, Daehyun. You have done acceptable work. Thank you, ma'am. He left the suite, only allowing himself to breathe properly once the door closed behind him. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally hitting his system. He had just spent 15 minutes alone with one of the galaxy's apex predators. And somehow he had survived more than survived. She had seemed almost impressed. No, that was impossible. Apex predators didn't get impressed by fragile humans. But as he walked back to his workstation, he couldn't shake the memory of those black eyes studying him. The way she had said his name. The tone in her voice when she called his work acceptable. It felt important somehow. He just didn't know why. Not yet. Hyejin found him later in the maintenance bay. I heard you went into the Vorthanis diplomat's suite. Are you insane? Someone had to fix the environmental controls. And you survived? Obviously, Hyejin shook her head in disbelief. You have more courage than sense, you know that? Daehyun just smiled. Fear doesn't fix machines, Nuna. Yeah, just be careful, okay? I have heard stories about Vorthanis. They are not like other species. They think differently. They see the galaxy in ways we don't understand. I will be careful. But even as he said it, Daehyun found himself wondering, what exactly did a Vorthanis see when they looked at a human? What had Kiresha seen when she looked at him? He had a feeling he might find out soon enough. Over the next week, something strange started happening. Daehyun would be working in some corner of the station and would notice Kiresha nearby. Not approaching him. Not speaking to him. Just there. At first he thought it was coincidence. The station was only so big. But after the 4th time he spotted her sensor tendrils in his peripheral vision, He realized it was deliberate. She was watching him. The other crew members noticed too. Conversations would stop when Dae-hyun walked into a room. People gave him even wider berths than usual. Vexthar started watching him with suspicious eyes, like Dae-hyun was planning something dangerous. On the 8th day of Kairasha's stay, Dae-hyun was repairing a ventilation duct in Section 5 when he heard her voice behind him. "You work alone often." He nearly dropped his spanner. He turned to find her standing in the corridor, her massive form making the space feel small. "Most of my work is in maintenance areas," he said carefully. "Not many people come down here. Inefficient. Humans are pack creatures. You should work in groups, but I prefer working alone sometimes. Easier to concentrate." She moved closer, her sensor tendrils extending slightly toward him. "You do not seem troubled by solitude. Most pack species show distress when isolated. I am not isolated. I have Hyejin, other humans on the station. We talk when shifts end. But you do not fear being alone." Dae-hyun wasn't sure where this conversation was going. "Should I? Prey species fear isolation. Predators seek it." She tilted her head. "You confuse the pattern." He went back to his work, trying to act normal despite having an 8-foot apex predator examining him like a puzzle. "Humans are complicated, I guess." "Yes, this is becoming clear to me." She stood there for another minute, just watching him work. Then she left without another word. 3 days later, it happened again. Dae-hyun was running diagnostics in the cargo bay when Kairasha appeared. "Why do your kind persist in environments that harm you?" she asked without preamble. He looked up from his data pad. "What do you mean?" "This station. The air is adequate for humans, but barely. The radiation shielding is insufficient for your delicate cellular structure. The gravity is slightly too high, stressing your skeletal system. Yet you remain. Why? Because this is where the work is. Someone needs to maintain the systems, keep people safe. But you gain little from this sacrifice. The other species do not respect you for it." The bluntness of her statement caught him off guard. He thought about lying, but something told him she would know. "No, they don't. Then why?" "Because it is the right thing to do." "And because," he paused, "because humans don't give up easily. It is what we do. We find places where we don't belong and make them work anyway." Her sensor tendrils moved in a pattern he was starting to recognize as thoughtfulness. Interesting. She left again after that. But Dae-hyun noticed she had been standing between him and the cargo bay entrance the whole time they talked, positioning herself between him and any potential threat. Strange. The breakthrough came during a shift change 2 weeks after Kairasha's arrival. Dae-hyun had stopped at the station commissary to grab food before heading back to his quarters. The place was crowded with crew members. He got his meal and was looking for a place to sit when he heard a familiar deep voice. "Sit here." Kairasha sat at a corner table, alone naturally. No one wanted to sit near a Vorthanis. She gestured to the seat across from her with one of her 4 hands. Every eye in the commissary turned to watch. Dae-hyun's first instinct was to refuse. Sitting with her would make him even more of an outsider than he already was. But something about the way she looked at him made him change his mind. He sat down. The conversations around them died completely. "You will eat now?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." He started on his meal. It was standard station food. Not great, but edible. He had learned not to be picky. "Your portion is small," she observed. "It is enough. Humans require frequent caloric intake to maintain your high metabolism. That meal is insufficient." "It is what I can afford on my salary." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, to his complete shock, she pushed her own meal across the table. It was some kind of meat, still bloody, clearly designed for a carnivore. "I do not require as much food as was provided." "You will take half," Dae-hyun froze. Around them he heard gasps. Someone dropped their tray. I can't. You refuse my offer?" There was something in her tone. Not threat exactly. "But wait," meaning he didn't understand. "It is your food," he said carefully. "I wouldn't want to take it from you. If I offer it, it is meant to be taken." She used a claw to cut the meat in half, then placed part of it on his tray. "Eat." He looked down at the bloody meat. It was not something humans usually ate raw, but something told him refusing would be a serious mistake. He took a small bite. Kairasha's sensor tendrils went completely still. Her 4 hands rested flat on the table. Her black eyes were locked on him. "Do you know what you just did, Dae-hyun?" The way she said it made his stomach drop. "What?" Among my people, shared food is only offered to hive mates. To family, it is a sacred offer. To accept is to acknowledge the bond. The commissary was dead silent now. Every crew member stared at them. Daehyun's mind raced. I didn't know. I'm sorry, I did not refuse your acceptance, he stopped. What? If I objected, I would have stopped you before you ate. I allowed it. Therefore, the bond is acknowledged. I don't understand. Kirisha leaned forward slightly. You shared your labor with me when you fixed my environmental controls. You treated me with respect, not fear. You have shown qualities that my people value, and now you have accepted food from my hand. Her sensor tendrils began moving in a complex pattern. You are claimed, Daehyun. Under Vorthanis law, you are family. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense, but I'm human. You're Vorthanis. We're completely different species. Family is not determined by species. It is determined by recognition, by actions, by bonds that transcend biology. She sat back. You do not need to understand all of it now. But know this, what is mine I protect, and you are mine now. Someone in the commissary made a strangled sound. Daehyun looked around and saw expressions of shock, fear, and disbelief on every face. Vexthar stood in the doorway, his yellow eyes wide. What have you done, human? The Krillian whispered. Daehyun had no answer. Over the following days, everything changed. Crew members avoided Daehyun more than ever. Not out of disgust now, but fear. Even Vexthar stopped making comments about human weakness. And Kiresha, she was always there now. Not constantly by his side, but close enough. When he walked through corridors, she appeared. When he ate, she sat nearby. When he worked, she observed, it was protective behavior. He realized that now. She was guarding him. Ijin pulled him aside one morning, her face serious. Do you understand what is happening? Not really. She has claimed you as family. Do you know what that means in Vorthanis culture? She said she would protect me. It is more than that. Hyejin pulled up information on her datapad. I have been researching. Vorthanis family bonds are absolute, sacred. If anyone threatens you now, they threaten her entire bloodline, and Vorthanis do not forgive threats. That seems extreme. That is their way. Apex predators can afford to be absolute. Hyejin looked worried. This will change everything for you. For better and for worse, she was right. Later that day, Daehyun was assigned to repair work in Section 7. When he arrived, a Gorath work crew was there. The same crew that had always ignored him, sometimes deliberately made his job harder. But when Thum saw Daehyun, the massive alien actually stepped back. Engineer, Thum said respectfully, we will clear the area for your work. They did. Quickly and efficiently. No complaints. No problems. It should have felt good. Respect, finally. But Daehyun couldn't shake the feeling that it was hollow. They didn't respect him. They feared what would happen if they didn't. That evening, he found Kiresha on an observation deck watching the stars. Why did you do it? He asked. She didn't turn to look at him. Do what? Claim me as family. You barely know me. I know enough. How? Now she did turn. Her black eyes reflected starlight. I have watched you for weeks. I have seen how this station treats you, how they dismiss your contributions, mock your strength, use your skills but give no respect in return. Her sensor tendrils moved in a pattern that might have been anger. I have also seen your response. You persist. You solve problems others cannot. You face danger without hesitation. You show courage that most species only pretend to have. That is just doing my job. No, it is being worthy. She moved closer. My people value strength, but not just physical strength. Strength of spirit, strength of purpose. You have these qualities, Daehyun. You remind us of what strength truly means. I don't feel strong. The strongest rarely do. One of her hands touched his shoulder gently, carefully. The gesture looked awkward on her, like she was learning how. You are pack, Daehyun, my pack, and I protect my pack. He didn't know what to say to that. They stood together on the observation deck watching the stars in silence. Somewhere behind them, the station continued its operations. Crew members worked and worried and whispered about the human claimed by an apex predator. But for just that moment, Daehyun felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt like he belonged somewhere. The news spread beyond the station faster than Daehyun expected. Within days, reports were circulating through nearby systems. A Vorthanis diplomat had claimed a human as family. It was unprecedented, shocking. Some species thought it was a political move. Others considered it an elaborate joke. But those on Kepler 7 knew better. They saw Kiresha's protective behavior. They saw how she positioned herself near Dae-hyun, how her sensor tendrils tracked any potential threats, how her body language changed when he was present. This was no joke. This was real. Dae-hyun tried to continue his work as normal, but everything felt different now. When he walked through corridors, conversations stopped. When he entered rooms, people moved aside. Some showed respect. Others showed fear. A few showed resentment. Vexthar was one of those. The Krillian security chief watched Dae-hyun with barely concealed anger. "You think you are special now?" Vexthar hissed at him one day in the lift. "Protected by an apex predator, but when she leaves you will still be just a fragile human." Dae-hyun said nothing. There was no point in arguing. But Kiresha heard about the encounter. That evening she found Vexthar in the security office. "You spoke to Dae-hyun today." The Krillian straightened, trying to maintain his authority. "I speak to many crew members. It is my job." "You threatened him." "I did no such thing. I merely stated facts." Kiresha moved forward until she towered over Vexthar's desk. All four of her hands rested on the surface, her claws leaving small marks in the metal. "Hear me clearly, Krillian. Dae-hyun is claimed. He is family. Any threat to him, implied or direct, is a threat to my bloodline." Her voice dropped lower. "Do you understand what happens to those who threaten Vorthana's family?" Vexthar's scales paled slightly. I meant no threat." "Good. Then we have no problem." She straightened. "But if I hear of another incident, we will have a very serious problem. One that your security position will not protect you from." She left. Vexthar sat very still for a long time. Word of the confrontation spread. After that, even the resentful crew members kept their distance from Dae-hyun. Fear was a powerful motivator, but something else was happening too. Kiresha was changing. Dae-hyun noticed it during one of their conversations. She asked him strange questions. "How do humans show affection to family? Why do your kind create art when it serves no survival purpose? What is the purpose of laughter?" At first he thought she was gathering intelligence, maybe for her diplomatic reports. But then he realized she was genuinely curious. She was trying to understand humans, trying to understand him. One day she appeared at his workstation carrying something in her upper hands. "I require your assistance," she said. "What do you need?" She held out a small, delicate piece of equipment. "I attempted to repair my personal communicator. It no longer functions. I believe I damaged it further." Dae-hyun took the device and examined it. She had definitely damaged it. Several circuits were crushed, likely from applying too much pressure with her powerful hands. "I can fix this," he said, "but it will take some time. I will watch." She settled down nearby, folding her large body into a sitting position. Her sensor tendrils focused entirely on his hands as he worked. "Your movements are very precise," she observed. "You have to be gentle with delicate equipment. Too much force breaks things. I lack gentleness. My hands are designed for tearing, not building. Everyone can learn gentleness. It just takes practice." She was quiet for a moment. "Would you teach me?" He looked up surprised. "Teach you what?" "How to repair things. How to work with delicate equipment. How to build instead of destroy. You want to learn engineering? I want to understand your skills. What you do seems valuable. More valuable than many give credit for." Something about her tone made Dae-hyun smile. "All right, I can teach you some basics." Over the next week, he did exactly that. Every day after his shift, Kiresha would meet him in the maintenance bay. He showed her how to use tools designed for much smaller hands, taught her to measure her immense strength, explained the logic behind maintenance protocols. She was a terrible student at first. Her hands crushed delicate components. Her strength bent metal tools. Her patience for small details was limited, but she kept trying. And slowly, incredibly, she improved. Other crew members would sometimes pass by and see them together. The massive apex predator hunched over a workbench, carefully trying to solder a circuit board while the small human engineer guided her movements. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was happening anyway. "Why is this important to you?" Dae-hyun asked one evening. Kiresha didn't look up from the component she was working on. "Predators are defined by what we destroy, what we hunt, what we kill. This is our strength, but also our limitation." She successfully completed the connection, and her sensor tendrils moved in what he had learned was satisfaction. "You build. You repair, you create. These are strengths I do not possess. I would learn them. Even if you can't use them, your hands will always be better for other things. The skill itself is not the only value. Understanding the skill changes how I see the galaxy. It makes me more than just a hunter. Daehyun understood then. She wasn't just learning to repair things. She was learning to think differently. To be different. You are pack bonding with the concept of building, he said softly. Perhaps. She looked at him with those bottomless black eyes. Or perhaps I am learning from family. 3 weeks after Carisha claimed him, Daehyun was working late in Section 3. A cargo shipment needed processing before morning, and he had volunteered to handle the inspection systems. He was running diagnostics when he heard voices. Angry voices. I don't care what the security chief says. That human has no business getting special treatment. Daehyun froze. He recognized the voice. Thum, the Gorath dock worker. You want to confront him? Another voice, unfamiliar. With that Vorthanis protecting him? She's not here now, and someone needs to remind that human of his place. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Coming his way, Daehyun looked around. He was in a dead-end section. No other exits. The only way out was past whoever was coming. He triggered his communicator. This is Daehyun in Section 3. I need... No one is coming to help you, human. Thum stepped into view, accompanied by 2 other Gorath. All of them were twice Daehyun's size. Time for a lesson. Daehyun's mind raced. He couldn't fight them. Couldn't run. The only option was to try and talk his way out. I don't want trouble. Too late for that. You brought trouble when you seduced that Vorthanis into protecting you. I didn't seduce anyone. I just fixed her environmental... Shut up. Thum moved closer. You are a parasite. Using others' strength to elevate yourself. We are going to show you what happens to parasites. Daehyun backed up against the wall. His heart was pounding. These were not trained fighters. They were dock workers, probably just planning to rough him up. But they outweighed him by hundreds of pounds. Even rough treatment could kill him. Thum raised one massive hand. Then the lights went out. In the darkness, Daehyun heard a sound. It was subtle at first. A whisper of movement, then breathing. Deep, rhythmic, controlled breathing. Predator breathing. Who is there? Thum's voice had lost its confidence. The emergency lights kicked in, bathing the section in red. Carisha stood between Daehyun and the 3 Gorath. She had come from nowhere, silent as death. Her sensor tendrils were extended fully, creating an almost halo effect around her head. Her forearms were spread, ready for violence. Her black eyes reflected the red light, making them seem to glow. She looked like something from a nightmare. You were going to touch my family, she said. Her voice was soft, deadly soft. We meant no harm, Thum stammered. Just a conversation. You raised your hand to strike. I saw it. Please, we did not know. You knew. Carisha took 1 step forward. All 3 Gorath took 3 steps back. You knew he was claimed. You knew he was family. You knew and you came anyway. We're sorry. Sorry is insufficient. Another step forward. Let me teach you what my people do to threats against family. Carisha. Daehyun's voice cut through the tension. Don't. She didn't turn, didn't look away from the Gorath. They were going to hurt you. I know. But if you hurt them, it will cause problems. Diplomatic problems. Problems that could affect your mission here. I do not care about missions when family is threatened. I care. And I'm asking you not to do this. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Carisha's sensor tendrils slowly retracted. Her arms lowered. But her voice remained cold. You will leave this section. You will report yourselves to security. You will confess what you attempted. She leaned down until she was eye level with Thum. And you will pray that Daehyun's mercy extends beyond this moment, because mine does not. The 3 Gorath fled. Once they were gone, Carisha turned to Daehyun. Her expression was difficult to read. You stopped me from protecting you. I stopped you from making a mistake. They threatened you, and you scared them more than they could ever scare me. That's enough. She studied him for a long moment. You are strange, Daehyun. You show mercy to those who show you none. I show wisdom. There's a difference. He managed a weak smile. Besides, family keeps each other from making mistakes, right? Her sensor tendrils moved in that pattern he had come to recognize as affection. Yes, family does exactly that. She walked him back to his quarters. 4 weeks after Kairesha claimed Daehyun as family, the station alarms went off again. But this time it wasn't a coolant leak or a system failure. It was ships. Hostile ships. Daehyun was in the maintenance bay when the announcement came. All personnel, this is Station Command. We have incoming vessels. 3 Krillian warships have entered our space. They are demanding we surrender prisoners currently held in our security detention. Daehyun's blood went cold. The prisoners. The smugglers who had tried to escape through the waste disposal system weeks ago. The ones Kairesha had captured. Additionally, Commander Quinn's voice shook. They are demanding we hand over the human engineer designated Daehyun. They claim he witnessed classified operations and must testify on their homeworld. Yejin appeared at his side, her face pale. They want you. I didn't see anything classified. I just stumbled onto them in the tunnels. It doesn't matter. It's an excuse. They want revenge for what Kairesha did to their people. She grabbed his arm. You need to hide. Where? This is a space station. There's nowhere to hide. Before she could answer, his communicator buzzed. It was Station Command requesting his presence immediately. The conference room was full when he arrived. Commander Quinn was there along with his entire staff. Vexthar stood in the corner looking uncomfortable. And at the head of the table sat Kairesha, her sensor tendrils moving in agitated patterns. On the main screen was a Krillian captain. He was larger than Vexthar, with more scars and darker scales, his eyes fixed on Daehyun the moment he entered. That is the human? Yes, Commander Quinn said nervously. But I must protest. Your protest is noted and dismissed. We are not here for debate. We are here for justice. The captain's voice was cold. The human witnessed our operations. He must testify. And we will have the prisoners you are illegally holding. They were caught smuggling illegal weapons, Quinn argued. Under station law is irrelevant. We have 3 warships. You have none. You will comply or we will take what we want by force. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. Kepler 7 was a civilian station. It had minimal defenses. The nearest military support was days away. If the Krillian fleet attacked, the station wouldn't last an hour. How long do we have to comply? Quinn asked quietly. 2 hours. Then we begin boarding procedures. The screen went dark. Quinn turned to his staff. Options? We surrender the prisoners, one advisor said immediately. We cannot risk the entire station. And Daehyun? Another asked. Silence. Vexthar spoke up, his voice strained. If we refuse to hand over the human, they will attack. Hundreds will die. He is a crew member, Quinn said. I cannot just hand him over to certain death. 1 life against hundreds, the first advisor said. The mathematics are clear. Daehyun felt like he was underwater. They were discussing his death like it was a budget calculation. His mouth was dry, but he forced himself to speak. I'll go voluntarily. If it saves the station, no, everyone turned. Kairesha had stood up. All 4 of her hands were flat on the table, her claws digging into the metal. The human Daehyun is under Vorthana's protection. He is family claimed. He goes nowhere. The Krillian captain's voice came back through the comm system. He must have been monitoring their discussion. The Vorthana's diplomat speaks boldly. But you are one. We are many. What can you do against 3 warships? Kairesha walked to the view screen. She stared directly into the camera. I will tell you what I can do, Krillian. If you harm Daehyun, if you take him from this station, I will broadcast your coordinates and your ship signatures to every Vorthana's hunting pack within 10 sectors. You would start a war over 1 human? I would start a genocide over my family. Her voice was absolutely calm. Do you know what happens when Vorthana's mark prey? We do not stop. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Your ships will be hunted. Your crew will be tracked. Your colonies will be visited. Every Krillian associated with this action will spend the rest of their very short lives being pursued by apex predators who never tire. Never sleep, never show mercy. The captain laughed. But it sounded forced. You threaten my entire species? I promise action against everyone involved in threatening my family. How many that includes is your choice. She leaned closer to the screen. You think 3 warships make you strong? I can have 50 Vorthana's hunters here within a week. 100 within 2. We do not operate alone when family is involved. We are solitary hunters until we are not. Touch Daehyun, and you will learn the difference. The captain's expression changed. The confidence wavered. You are bluffing. Test me. Long seconds passed. Daehyun could hear his own heartbeat. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. Finally, the captain spoke again. "This is madness. One human is not worth. One family member is worth everything. This is not negotiable. This is not a discussion." Kiresha's sensor tendrils spread wide. "You have a choice, Captain. Leave now with your dignity intact, or leave later as hunted prey. Either way, you leave without Daehyun." More silence. Then the captain's face disappeared from the screen. 10 minutes later, sensors showed the Krillian warships turning around. They jumped to hyperspace without another word. The conference room erupted in confused celebration. Commander Quinn slumped in his chair, visibly relieved. His staff chattered nervously, unable to believe what had just happened. But Daehyun just looked at Kiresha. She stood very still, her sensor tendrils slowly settling back into normal patterns. "You would really have called in every Vorthanis in 10 sectors? Yes, for me?" She turned to face him. "You are family. There is nothing I would not do. I'm just a maintenance engineer. You are much more than that. You are clever. You are brave. You are kind." She moved closer. "And you are mine to protect. This is what family means." Hyejin approached carefully. "The station owes you a debt, Kiresha. If you had not intervened—" "I did not intervene for the station. I intervened for Daehyun." She looked around at all the assembled crew. "But you should understand something. What I said to the Krillians was not a bluff. If any of you threaten him, if any of you allow harm to come to him, you will face the same response. He is claimed. He is family. This is absolute." The message was clear. Daehyun wasn't just protected. He was untouchable. The news spread through the station in minutes. Within hours, it was broadcasting through nearby systems. A Vorthanis had threatened to call down an entire hunting fleet to protect one human. She had faced down warships without hesitation. The galaxy took notice. Over the next few days, something remarkable happened. Ships started arriving at Kepler 7. Not hostile ships. Curious ships. Vorthanis vessels. They came one at a time at first. Solitary hunters wanting to see the human who had been claimed as family. They observed Daehyun from a distance, their sensor tendrils analyzing him, trying to understand what Kiresha had seen. Some spoke to him briefly, asked questions, studied how he worked, how he moved, how he interacted with others, and then they left, but not before each one registered their acknowledgement of Kiresha's claim. In Vorthanis culture, this meant something important. It meant they recognized Daehyun as protected, as family, not just to Kiresha, but to all Vorthanis who honored the old ways. 3 weeks later, Kiresha's diplomatic mission concluded. Her ship was ready for departure. The day before she was scheduled to leave, she found Daehyun in the maintenance bay. He was teaching another engineer how to repair a plasma conduit. When he saw her, he excused himself and walked over. "You are leaving tomorrow." "Yes. My mission is complete. Will you—" He paused. "Will you be okay out there? Going back to being alone?" Her sensor tendrils moved in a pattern that might have been amusement. "I was alone before I met you. It did not bother me then. But now—" She tilted her head. "Now I understand what I was missing." What was that? Connection. Purpose beyond survival. Someone to protect who is not myself. She placed one hand on his shoulder, the gesture much smoother now than it had been weeks ago. "You have taught me many things, Daehyun. How to repair machines. How to be patient. How to think of others before myself. These are valuable lessons. You taught me things too. How to stand up for myself. How to recognize my own worth. How to be part of a family." He smiled. "Even if that family is terrifying to everyone else. The best families are." They were quiet for a moment. Then Daehyun asked the question he had been avoiding. "What happens now?" "You'll be light years away. I'll still be here. Distance does not break family bonds. Not for Vorthanis." She pulled out a small device and handed it to him. "This is a personal communicator. Direct link to my ship. If you ever need assistance, if you are ever threatened, activate it. I will come. That could take weeks. I will still come. And every Vorthanis who has acknowledged my claim will come too." Her black eyes held his. "You are not alone anymore, Daehyun. You will never be alone again." The next day, the entire station gathered to watch Kiresha's departure. It was unprecedented. Diplomatic guests usually left with little fanfare. But this was different. She stood at the airlock ready to board her ship. Commander Quinn gave a speech about mutual understanding and cooperation. Vexthar stood nearby, looking uncomfortable but respectful. Then Kairesha turned to Daehyun. In front of everyone, she knelt down. It lowered her height to where she was almost eye level with him,